Part 44. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gumu Shuang. Chapter 431. He almost fainted when he received a call in the middle of the night yesterday that his granddaughter was planning to commit suicide. He really loved his granddaughter, so he couldn't bear to see her feel any grievance. In addition, Malikshuan had been spoiled by him since she was a pony. After they arrived in the imperial capital, he realized that the other party had met someone who was very similar to her boyfriend. But that person was still the young master of the Si family. Malikshuan's parents once met Silv from a distance through Mr. Ma's relationship, so they remembered it immediately. Malikshuan was making a fuss about her life and death. Mr. Ma knew that he was ignored, so he could only go to the house with a shy face and beg Si Guanyi, who owed him a favor, to trick Si Lu back. After all, if this reason were used directly, with Si Lu's temper, Si Guanyi fully understood that he would not take Malikshuan seriously at all. If you want to die, what does it have to do with him? So I briefly mentioned that someone in the family was seriously ill, but didn't say anything specific, but Si Lu did come back. Anyway, he can go back and forth very quickly, and he is not abroad. But when you meet people, it's a different story. Ian. Malikshuan, who was behind him, moved closer and reached out to hug Si Lu from behind. Before he could grab Si Lu felt the cold wind blowing from his back. His hair almost stood up on his back, and he used his backhand to hug Malikshuan. Pushed away. Roll. His pupils turned gloomy at this moment. Without Yingwan here, his temper was completely uncontrollable and was vented. This sound was like a knife piercing Malikshuan's heart. Then Si Lu strode over to in front of his father. He looked like a sinister person. Dad, you'd better give me a reasonable explanation. The words that came out of his mouth were full of evil, and he didn't even look at Mr. Ma next to him. Si Lu, this time it's none of your father's business. Mr. Ma was still a little frightened when he saw Si Lu's appearance, so he had to stand up and explain to Si Guanyi. His old eyes were full of sadness. I am just a granddaughter. She came back in the middle of the night and made a fuss after seeing you yesterday. If you want to commit suicide, I have no choice but to let your father trick you back. At least you can coax her dash. What does that have to do with me? Si Lu sneered, and his words were cold and ruthless. Do I know her? If she dies, what does it have to do with me? As soon as these words came out, Ma Jun's expression changed. Si Guanyi knew how angry Si Lu was now, but he had to stop him. Si Lu. At least you can't say such heartless words to your elders. Si Lu just looked at them coldly and strode away from the hospital. Unable to stop him, Malikshuan screamed again as she watched him leave. The harsh voice made Si Guanyi feel a little irritated. However, he was calm enough and did not show any impatience. He could only whisper. He said to Ma Jun, Uncle Ma, this method can only cure the symptoms but not the root cause. You don't know the temper of that bastard in my family. If you can do this once, you won't be able to do it a second time. I still suggest that Ling Qinjin be sent to him as soon as possible. It's better to go to treatment. Ma Jun's face froze. It's one thing for your granddaughter to be sick, but it's another thing for others to tell you. Malikshuan's screams continued, and she was quickly brought in by medical staff. Ma Jun had to go see his granddaughter. He only looked for Si Lu to come back and calm him down, forgetting that he might continue to irritate Malikshuan. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gumu Shuang. Chapter 432. When Si Guanyi returned home, he saw Si Lu was about to go out. Seeing Si Lu's appearance, Si Guanyi had a headache. Are you going again? Si Lu glanced at Si Guanyi. His narrow eyes were full of cold silence at this moment. Si Guanyi had not given him a reasonable explanation for what happened in the hospital. Si Lu had a bad temper, and the fact that he did not get angry after being deceived was enough to prove that his usual upbringing was absolutely top-notch. The main thing is that the man in front of him is his father. Seeing his appearance, Si Guanyi sighed, "I didn't lie to you, but I owed Mr. Ma a favor when I was young. This time he came to my door, and I couldn't turn a blind eye to it no matter what I said." "You are the one who owes the favor, not me," Si Lu said coldly. "You know, I never like people to lie to me. But a favor can be offset by your return trip, a very cost-effective deal." Si Guanyi walked to the hall behind Si Lu, his voice was still elegant and calm. "Sit down, let's talk." Si Lu turned around, his tall body stood there like a sculpture, except for a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. "What do we need to talk about what happened today? You should be grateful that my temper is much better now. After all, as he gets older, a 28-year-old man has experienced more things and is calmer than before. If it were a younger Si Lu, he would have exploded in the hospital as early as now." "About Yingwan." Hearing Yingwan, Si Lu's eyelids drooped slightly. "I don't really like to bring her into our relationship. He and Yingwan are their own affairs, not topics to be discussed on the table." Si Guanyi still spoke calmly. "Really? It seems that I don't need to tell you some news, such as someone wants to introduce a partner to Yingwan." As soon as he finished speaking, Si Lu walked over. His whole body was a little tense, exuding a somewhat scary aura. "Who is so nosy?" Si Guanyi just raised his eyes to look at him. "Do you think Yingwan is like you? No one dares to introduce her?" Yingwan is a 24-year-old girl. Apart from her achievements, she is still a woman in essence. Getting married is a topic she can't escape. Of course, whether she wants to get married is another matter, but you know, the more people pay attention to her, the more there are people who like to find things to do. You know about the Su family, right? Su-han is the one who protects Yingwan. Originally, the closer he is to her, the better. However, I heard that Su-han's attitude is very firm, and the Su family has no chance at all. Originally, someone wanted to make a connection this time. The eldest son of the Li family came back a few days ago, and he was going to meet Yingwan. Although the Li family is not as powerful as the Si family in the imperial capital, it is also a powerful family. The most important thing is that the Li family is a military family. That kind of family is really suitable for Yingwan, and Xian Lan, who is closest to Yingwan, is also related to the Li family. Si Guanyi was able to know the news because someone leaked it first. After all, everyone introduced it, but these things still had to be asked to Yingwan in the end. Yingwan didn't say anything. They still didn't dare to act on their own to this extent. Seeing the cold light in Si Lu's eyes, Si Guanyi's answer was different. "Do you know why he didn't come? It's because your affairs have spread over there. Now everyone knows that Yingwan is still accompanied by a busybody." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 433. Hearing this, Si Lu felt happy and just chuckled. "What do you mean by being nosy? I am pursuing an above-board pursuit. The problem is that Yingwan didn't agree. Who knows what your relationship is with Yingwan?" Si Guanyi looked at him and poked his lungs. "It's just pursuit. She has the right to refuse, and she also has the right to accept other people's overtures. Now everyone is holding still for the time being because they know you are there, but you don't. It may always be like this. You always have to have a result, and I have to remind you of a realistic problem." He spoke earnestly and thoughtfully. "Si Lu, you are 28. Sooner or later, you will inherit everything in the Si family, and you will also hand over all of this to your next generation. Although a man is 30 years old, he is still a golden age, but if you pursue its Yingwan, I know her pursuits. She will probably focus on her career throughout her life. She is a miracle. The country will definitely continue to support her and hope that she will carry out more research projects. You are destined to be in the same time period. You have the SI family's career to take care of, and she may stay in the laboratory her whole life. You have to think clearly. If you can't get results before you are 30, then it's time to end it as soon as possible. Si Lu was silent for a moment, then sat down, crossed his legs, put one hand on the back of the sofa, and said lazily, "In what era, Dad, are you still doing this? Don't you just want me to get married and have children, a child? This is not a matter of time. Do you want me to watch 100 years from now when the SI family won't even have a third-generation heir? Of course it doesn't matter if we are an ordinary family, but this is the SI family. I can't possibly watch. Everything in the SI family is in the hands of outsiders." Si Lu sat up straight again and looked at his father sincerely. "You are still young and you are still capable. I suggest you have another child. It is not too late to raise him. After all, I am already prepared for a long-term struggle in the evening. You don't expect me to find anyone else. I'm not interested in anyone else at all. I'm just interested in her. If you have a way, you might as well tell me how to catch her as soon as possible." Si Guanyi almost picked up a pen beside the table and threw it at Si Lu. "Get out of here." Si Lu clicked his tongue, his anger dissipated a bit, and stood up. Of course he still wanted to rush to Guangdong City. Of course he wanted to respond to Wan Wan. But it has to be said that Si Guanyi's words still touched his lifeblood. A long-term struggle is a struggle. How can he have time to persist for 6 years after another? From the age of 22 to now, he has never disturbed Yingwan because he knew that Yingwan had to study all kinds of things and she had her own things to do. Although she was smart, she was very busy. And he is the same. He watched her climb higher and higher, standing further and further away, and he could only look up and touch the traces of her. He was good enough that no one else even had a chance to touch her. If you like it, you really like it, and if it's difficult to do, it's really difficult to do it. Yingwan seemed to have no needs and no desires. He didn't particularly like or dislike anything, so every time Si Lu wanted to surprise him, he found he couldn't do it. Because she lacks nothing. Although his courage had not dissipated, his father had just poked a lung tube, and he still felt a little depressed. He happened to know that he had returned to the imperial capital, and his best friend called him again to invite him to meet at a bar. He thought for a while and then went. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 434. Going to a bar is of course to drink. Of course, there are many activities in the bar, and the bar they went to is a famous bar. Even the DJs they invited are well known on the list, and it costs a lot to come here. And Si Lu is probably the only time he can support the bar. As long as there is news that he is coming here, the bar will basically be full that day. Even if the bar consumption here is sky high, there are countless rich second generations who want to curry favor and countless internet celebrities and models who want to climb up the ladder. He always sits in the booth on the second floor of the bar, with deafening music below. Because of Si Lu's personal habit, every time his brothers accompany him, they have to be forced to be monks. Even if there are countless girls downstairs looking up at the upstairs, it's a pity that the man in the center of attention is still just drinking his wine. He rarely gets drunk when he drinks, and his alcohol tolerance is also very good. Today, he seems to be drinking like a desperate person. In a short while, several bottles have been opened in front of him. The wine here is specially made, expensive, and the taste is not comparable to that outside. The alcohol content is not low. After drinking these few bottles, Si Lu really has some flowers in front of his eyes, which shows how terrifying it is. The other brothers looked at him with some hesitation. "Brother Lu, Are you worried about something? Otherwise, why would he drink like he didn't care about his life today? Someone pushed the arm of the person who was talking. Who doesn't know that Sci-Lu has been following Yingwan in the countryside recently? Now even the most dull people should know what Sci-Lu is doing in the countryside. If it were someone else, it would be fine, but if it was Yingwan, this group of rich second generations unanimously thought that Sci-Lu was simply miserable. See who is not good enough to see a god. But Sci-Lu is also awesome. He dares to dream of being a god, which proves that he is indeed the boss. Sci-Lu didn't say anything, but he drank bottle after bottle of wine. In the end, his brothers couldn't stand it anymore and stopped him from drinking because they were afraid that he would really get into trouble. He didn't lose his temper, but he drank nearly 10 bottles in a row. Even a normal person couldn't hold it anymore. His stomach was churning, so he rushed into the bathroom and vomited. He also ran into a woman who followed him secretly to see if there was any chance. When he walked out, his hand was on the door frame outside the sink, and his eyes were looking at the flowers on the ground. The other party came over. She had a hot body and a beautiful face. There was nothing to say. Just as she approached Sci-Lu, she spoke in a coquettish voice behind him, breathing like orchids, "Master Si." Sci-Lu raised his eyes suddenly, and his eyes were dark, like a demon in the abyss, exuding a ferocious breath. The woman didn't finish her words, as if her throat was strangled, and she didn't dare to say a word. Her legs even began to tremble, until Sci-Lu said the word "get out." She ran away in fear as if she had been pardoned. There was no thought of seducing him at all. With that look just now, she was even afraid that he would kill her directly. After all, with his status, no matter what he did, there would be someone to help him. Sci-Lu did drink a little too much. He was dizzy at this time. Since he lived in the countryside with Yingwan, he has cultivated his body and mind, and he is very good at it. Even his physical fitness has begun to improve. He hadn't touched alcohol for several months. At this time, he drank a lot at once, and his stomach couldn't stand it. Not only was it painful, but he was also dizzy. He simply sat up and didn't rush out. He forced himself to lean against the corridor outside the sink and lit a cigarette. There were a few bodyguards over there. Seeing Sci-Lu's appearance, they didn't dare to come up. There will be more soon. Since it's 520, everyone should be prepared to receive a critical hit. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 435. In the smoke, the face of the man wearing a black shirt was shocking and outrageous. There was a mirror opposite, which just reflected Sci-Lu's face. He just raised his eyelids and took a look. He was drunk at this time and was a little blurry. His thoughts were very chaotic, and he was not a narcissistic person, but when he saw the face in the mirror, he couldn't help but patted his cheek mockingly. Everyone said he was good looking, but he wasn't good looking enough, otherwise he wouldn't be able to deceive anyone. The other party never looked at his face, which was completely useless. His head was a little dizzy. People say that people have random thoughts when they are drunk. He was probably the same now, thinking more. Ren has been persisting for several months. In the process of getting along with Yingwan, although the time spent together was short, he could not help but feel that Yingwan did not hate him. But the amazing thing is that there is basically no one that Yingwan hates. Unless it's someone she doesn't like, she won't chase you away even if you stay by her side shamelessly. For example, Lin Mei. Although Lin Mei is her sister. But for Yingwan, it's actually the same. It's true that people don't have a clear mind when they're drunk, and Sci-Lu unexpectedly thought of Yingwan's drunk appearance at that time. He thought about the serious look on his face when the other party asked him to do the questions with a red face, which still left a lot of traces in his heart, so much so that Sci-Lu felt like laughing when he thought about it now. The laughter resounded in the corridor, and several bodyguards heard it and looked at each other in horror. I wonder if the young master is suddenly going crazy. Otherwise, why would he smile inexplicably when he is alone? They didn't know whether he was going crazy or not. Sci-Lu was drunk and not clear-headed at the moment, and he was getting bolder. He took out his cell phone and was silent for about 3 minutes at Yingwan's cell phone number. That name is at the top of his notes. It's always at the first place in the phone book. Even his dad just follows the random order of the system. He even pinned it on WeChat. I like it, I really like it very much. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so impulsive at the age of 22. Once some people make a decision, it actually lasts a lifetime. Who knows what the future holds, but now all I can think about is being with her. 3 minutes later, with his slender fingertips, he still pressed the phone. Compared to usual times, his mind was confused and his heart was beating unusually fast. Because usually, he would at least find some excuses to talk to Yingwan, but now he didn't know what excuses to make. It looked like he was just doing nothing to harass Yingwan. If she was busy, she wouldn't answer the phone. Sci-Lu hoped that she was busy for a moment, but he didn't want her to be busy. It rang about 3 times, and just when Sci-Lu thought she wouldn't answer, the call went through. Hello. The girl's voice was soft and shallow, a little low, as if it was in an open place, and there was still some echo. Hearing that voice, his heart felt like a cat scratching his chest. He swallowed up and down his throat. There was only heavy breathing and no reply in time. It's like being drunk, all senses are amplified. Seeing that he remained silent, Yingwan continued to speak a little strangely. Why don't you say anything? Why don't you come to me if you have something to do? She had just come out of the shower, and Sci-Lu's call was really timely. Otherwise she wouldn't answer it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 436. This hum seemed to come from the nose, with a sexy low tone. But I can also hear that the nasal sound is a bit thick. It wasn't that he had a cold, but that his voice had changed a bit when he was drunk. When the message came through the phone, Yingwan felt that his phone was shaken. Special vibrato. He always had a nice voice too. She paused and said, "What's the matter?" After thinking for a moment, she took the initiative to ask, "I heard that your father asked you to go back because of Malikshuan, the granddaughter of Mr. Ma Jun." Yingwan actually found out about this. Sci-Lu didn't think Yingwan was the kind of nosy person. It was probably Suhan who said it. People like them want to know all the information. Thinking about this now, Sci-Lu still felt very annoyed, so he said again, but this time he was a little irritated, and he didn't want to involve Yingwan, so he lowered his voice and said a little tiredly, "It's my dad. Those who tricked me into coming back, I don't know the Ma family at all." Maybe he had met Mr. Ma before, but he was not a particularly important person. He had forgotten all about it, let alone the other person's granddaughter. There was something wrong with his voice, and Yingwan didn't know if she had heard something wrong, because she had received calls from Sci-Lu before. She thought for a moment and asked, "Have you been drinking?" Sci-Lu. After a long while, he slowly said, "Well, my brother made an appointment with me tonight, and I thought I would come out after not seeing them for a few months." He seemed to be taking the initiative to explain what he had done. After thinking for a while, he added dryly, "It was just drinking." "Oh." Yingwan just said "oh," and there was a hint of embarrassment between the two of them. Because this "oh" means that she knows and has no intention of continuing to ask. She was sitting barefoot on the edge of the bed. Xiao He walked in and swung his tail at her, then came over and rubbed her instep. Although she was not used to it, Xiao He was often taken to bathe by her, and she developed a good habit of being clean. She would rub her paws on the mat when she came in, so she did not stop Xiao He from getting too close. The puppy was very furry, and she saw that Xiao He's body was a little bigger than a few months ago, and his face was a little elongated. Kind of like a wolf-dog hybrid like those in the countryside. Xiao He rolled over, wanting Yingwan to touch his belly. Yingwan just lowered his body and suddenly heard Si Lu's deep words, "I want to ask you again, can you really not give me a chance? I tried anyway. If you feel dissatisfied later, you can dump her." After drinking alcohol, people's brains are really bad. If you were sober, you would have to weigh the words you said in such a humble way. He will definitely carefully arrange some surprises and confess his love again seriously. No matter how you look at it now, it seems a bit casual. Yingwan paused. The hand that touched Xiao He slowly retracted. Seeing that she had withdrawn her hand, Xiao He barked twice. Dislike. She should have refused at the first moment, but thinking of certain things during this period and the puzzling dream, she felt that this sentence suddenly became difficult to say. Since I can't say it out loud, there should always be an answer. Maybe give it a try. After all, she had never talked about it, but she also knew that if she really didn't like him, her situation with Si Lu would not be good. She didn't have an answer for 10 seconds. When the people's hearts gradually sank, she heard those simple words, "Okay." Confession: I can write about spreading dog food, spreading flowers, and recommend a sweet quick novel to everyone. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 437. Si Lu's fingers holding the cigarette froze. It was as if he was hearing hallucinations in his ears, and he couldn't believe the answer he just heard. What did you say? He was afraid that he was drunk, and the auditory hallucinations filtered in his brain made him only hear what he wanted to hear. The cigarette ash fell, and his pupils trembled slightly at this moment. Even if the cigarette ash that had not yet been extinguished fell on the other hanging wrist, burning him, he did not react at the moment. Fortunately, Yingwan was not a hypocritical person. She said it again very generously, "I said yes, you are not drunk, and you heard me correctly. But it still feels like an auditory hallucination. After all, he has been begging for so many years and is ready for the long march. If it becomes a reality one day, it naturally feels like an illusion." And it was too sudden. He made a drunk phone call, but to his surprise, Yingwan agreed to his request. It suddenly seemed like something ridiculous he had done himself. Hearing that there was no sound over there for a long time, only the man's heavy breathing, Yingwan listened and asked again, "Are you drunk and about to faint?" After all, she was indeed unconscious when she was drunk. Is Si Lu also like this when he is drunk? Then he might not remember what he said when he wakes up tomorrow. Thinking of this, Yingwan felt that it was really unreliable. If you can't remember, forget it. Remember. Si Lu felt as if his scalp tightened. What was happening now made him feel unrealistic. His heart was beating so hard that it felt like it would jump out of his throat. Now, he really wanted to see Yingwan right away. The man who originally thought that this distance was nothing, immediately felt that the distance between him and Yingwan was still far enough. No, he should not come back at all. Even if Si Guanyi makes fun of him next time about his serious illness. He was breathing heavily and immediately started running. Wait for me for 2 hours. Recognizing the meaning behind his words, Yingwan frowned slightly. Are you going to come back now? Si Lu didn't say anything. He said, I'll call you later. Yingwan, you have to remember what you said today. You must remember that you promised it yourself. He hung up the phone before Yingwan could even speak. She was afraid that Yingwan would say something again just now. She was joking. Everything was like a dream. He suddenly rushed out from the corridor beyond the bathroom. The music in the bar was still deafening. When the brothers saw Sci-fi come out, they came over and grabbed their own things. "I have to leave first. I'll pay the bill, it's over, see you later." He couldn't hide the joyful smile on his face, and he didn't even shy away from anything because he was so happy. Without waiting for any of them to react, they turned around and left. The brothers were confused on the spot. "No, Brother Lou, where are you going?" Unfortunately, the music was too loud and the bar was deafening. Their voices could no longer be heard, and all he could see was the figure of the man running away eagerly. "What's so urgent?" "My wife has given birth," one of them complained, and the others looked at each other, really not knowing what was going on. But he seemed happy. Some people made random guesses. "Just now when I walked in, I looked like a stepfather. Why has it changed drastically now when I came out? What's wrong? Did you really catch up with academician Ying?" Everyone looked at each other and burst out laughing again. This is Brother Lou's only Waterloo in life. Of course he will laugh at it as hard as he can when he gets the chance. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 438. Sci Lu called and informed his subordinates to immediately arrange a private jet for him. He wanted to return to Guangdong City immediately and couldn't wait any longer. Compared to his excitement, Yingwan was very calm. She knew that even if Sci Lu rushed back immediately, it would take 2 hours to fly and 2 hours to get here from the city. She would have to get up soon after he arrived. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to rest well. She felt that with Sci Lu's virtue, he would definitely come to her when he arrived. Thinking of this, "You should plan to go to bed late." She muted her voice and said to Xiao He, "Good night." She smiled. "In fact, I can't express what I feel in my heart. I just feel that after agreeing to Sci Lu, I feel relaxed. Unlike before, I always felt like something was wrong with me. She is neither thin-skinned nor thick-skinned." She didn't like that Sci Lu had clearly refused, but she couldn't drive him away. Now that she has agreed, I am afraid it will be even harder to drive him away. The little black girl barked, lay down in the doghouse next to the bed, and fell asleep obediently. She closed her eyes, maybe even she didn't know it, but there was still a slight arc in the corner of her mouth, although it was not obvious. Imperial capital. No matter how much Bai Ya slept tonight, he felt a little unsteady, tossing and turning like a cake. Zhu Liuyu disliked that he couldn't sleep well, so she said sleepily, "If you don't want to sleep, go to sleep on the sofa." Bai Ya turned over and looked at her with a serious expression. "I always feel uneasy today. I feel like something big is going to happen." "Did something happen to boss?" "Don't curse her." Zhu Liuyu's voice was vague. "Besides, Su Han and the others are guarding Yingwan over there. What could happen to her? You also sent bodyguards there. If anything happens, we'll call you as soon as possible." "We'll know." "Bai Ya, but I still feel something is wrong." "What exactly is wrong with you?" "Zhu Liuyu, I only know whether you are sleeping or not, so I will kill you on the spot." "Bai Ya." He still felt a little uneasy when he thought about it, but after all, he had to get up early to go to work tomorrow, and people from overseas branches would also come over for meetings. He had too many things to do in a day, and even if he felt something was wrong, he didn't have more time to think about it. "Hey, it's all the boss's fault. Good people come back from retirement and still don't come to the company. Look at what kind of people they are. It was only 10 o'clock when I went to the bar to drink. I took the plane as quickly as possible to Guangdong City, which was just after 12:30 in the morning." He was indeed confused after drinking. He wanted to see Yingwan so much that he would not risk his own life. Otherwise, his dream would have come true. What would happen if he died? "So I still hired a driver. Asked the other party to drive to maximum speed. Fortunately, there was no one on the way, and the driver was very skilled and could use it to his fullest. He was actually not in a good state. He drank alcohol tonight just like drinking water. Now the side effects started to set in. He vomited twice on the plane when he was walking in a hurry. His stomach also ached slightly, but it was not a big problem. He was leaning on his back and dozing with his eyes closed. The pleasure can still be seen on the furrowed brows. He wanted to see Yingwan so much right now. He didn't know what she was doing. Maybe she was asleep, so he didn't dare to call Yingwan. What if she doesn't have a good temper and refuses to agree when she comes up? Worrying about gains and losses is easier to describe his current state. It's like there was nothing to lose before, so it doesn't matter what you do. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 439. But now it's different, Yingwan agreed to him. Then it's his. This is also his first time to fall in love, and he has witnessed many of them around him, but it's a pity that there is no good weather vane. On the contrary, Bai Yat and Zhu Liu are a couple who have achieved a happy ending, but they are not like him and Yingwan. He opened the window and blew the cold wind outside to calm himself down. His Yingwan. His. When people are happiest, some things are completely out of control, so that when he thought of this word, he couldn't help but let out a low laugh. The driver looked at him in surprise, wondering why the young master went crazy on the spot tonight. Was it because he was too stimulated? Not really, he looked happy. What happy event happened tonight? The man's smile made the years pale in comparison, and his handsome appearance was indeed beyond words. The car quickly rushed to Huayang village at 2 o'clock in the morning. Suhan and a special forces member happened to be on duty tonight. They were a little surprised to see Sci-Lu coming back in the middle of the night. He came back in such a hurry. It seems that the things in the capital city have stimulated him too much. Suhan raised his eyebrows. Seeing that this man always had a spring breeze on his body when he came back, he had some ominous premonitions in his heart. In addition, Sci-Lu went directly to Yingwan's residence. The Special Forces team member said, "In the middle of the night, you dare to harass Miss Ying? Is it too much?" "Captain, we won't stop him." Suhan was smoking at this time. After all, there was nothing to do at night. He took a deep breath and said, "It's not easy to stop him. Look at his appearance. It is likely that something has come true." Special Forces team member? "Captain, I don't understand." Sci-Lu arrived at the door of Yingwan's residence at this time. The door was not open, and he couldn't break in. Walking back and forth outside twice, he couldn't help it and called Yingwan. Yingwan was silent when she slept at night, but the screen would light up. The light woke up Xiaohei, and it barked twice. It was these two sounds that woke Yingwan. She opened her eyes dazedly and saw her phone was on. She turned around and saw that it was Sci-Lu who called in the middle of the night. She immediately knew that Sci-Lu had probably arrived. She answered the phone. Her voice was unusually low because of sleepiness, and it sounded milky. "Hello." When Sci-Lu heard her voice, he felt like he was startled and his head was numb. He rubbed his forehead and thought it was really terrible. He knew that Yingwan was woken up by the noise, so he patiently coaxed her, "Wan, I'm here, can you come out and open the door? I'll go in and sit for a while." The relationship changed, and the address naturally changed. He had already called her countless times in his mind, and it was very natural to change it now. Yingwan was a little unhappy when she heard this, and half supported herself to sit up. "Why are you here so late at night? Go back to your house and rest. Why don't we meet tomorrow?" "I'm not running away." That's the truth, but Sci-Lu couldn't help it. He could only be humble. I want to see you, just look at you, say a few words to you, and wait until you fall asleep before I leave. He felt that he was completely held by Yingwan, and now he just wanted to go along with her no matter what she said. But at this moment, he really wanted to see her to calm his heart that was still beating abnormally at the moment. He needed Yingwan to say that sentence in person to confirm that he was not imagining. There will be more later. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 440. Yingwan's heartbeat seemed to pause for a moment. When she heard the humble begging voice on the phone, she actually felt confused. Because Sci-Lu was always arrogant in front of her. Although he always followed her, he never showed such a humble attitude. Not even when I rejected him. Why did he just accept it and now he has become a little humble? She didn't quite understand Sci-Lu like this, but she felt inexplicably soft-hearted. She suppressed her sleepiness. After all, she only slept for 3 or 4 hours. Although she has a strong brain and needs less rest time than normal people, she still has a normal schedule most of the time, so much so that she is now very sleepy. She got up and opened the door. Sci-Lu stood outside, heard the sounds in the yard, and saw Yingwan walking out in white pajamas. Now that the weather is cold, the pajamas she wears are a little thick and plush. She's out of print Totoro pajamas. It's not that she likes these styles, it's that someone is usually responsible for her in these aspects. She likes simple and low-key styles, but except for styles that are too complicated and gorgeous, she will generally accept them. It looks really cute on her. She would sleep with her hair down at night, and when she came out now, she really looked like a chinchilla. She walked over with her hands folded and looked at Sci-Lu standing outside the door. With the light in the yard, she saw the man standing outside the door with eyes filled with the brightest stars. His eyes were very bright, especially now they were as bright as stars. There is no doubt that he is good looking. The first time he saw her, he couldn't help but laugh. His usual smile is actually a bit unflattering, because he basically looks at people with a hint of sarcasm. He is not from the same world as others and always carries his own arrogance. Only facing Yingwan, he smiled very freely at the moment. The smile was so bright that he even narrowed his eyes slightly. It looked like a crescent moon, which was indescribable. He just watched her smile quietly, and this smile also reached the bottom of her heart. She went over to open the door and said, "You must come here in the middle of the night." It seemed like a complaint, but also had her unique light flavor. He couldn't help it, and wanted to reach out and hug her, but he thought that it was just the beginning after all, and it must be a bit abrupt for her that he was so impulsive. It was already very difficult for her to agree, and he didn't want to scare her by doing something impulsive. Even though he just wanted to hug her now. He came in sideways, his smile couldn't be concealed, as if he was looking at the beauty of the world. "I just want to see you." He closed the door to the courtyard, and the movement unconsciously became quieter. Yingwan turned around and walked closer to the house, yawning. Seeing that she was really sleepy, Sci-Lu was not willing to torture her. He moved behind her. She was more than a head shorter than him. He looked at the hair on her head and asked expectantly, "What did you say on the phone? Is it true?" Yingwan turned around and looked at him strangely. He came in a hurry and still wore the same clothes he wore yesterday, which was not in line with the characteristics of his young master. The sight also proved that he was indeed in a hurry. "Aren't you drunk? Why are you asking me this? What if what you say is not true? Maybe you are drunk." Sci-Lu was very angry at these words. "Am I drunk? You should know what I say even when I'm drunk. I've told you this all the time. You suddenly agreed to me, which of course surprised me. I'm just too happy."